Wog 1. Today I'm going to be going through my master chain for humble beginnings, and first off we're starting with a subtractive EQ, which gets rid of all of the frequencies that you physically can't hear. So we're cutting at 20 hertz, and then we're cutting at around about 16,000 hertz. Just because you can't hear those frequencies doesn't mean that they're not interfering with your mix, so that's why I have cut them away. Next we have a different type of EQ, which is a mid to side EQ. Basically what it does is it allows you to isolate the specific frequencies within your mix. So you have your sides, and then you have your mids. By cutting off the sides, it basically allows you to have more space within your mix. Basically just giving it more depth, and then you can take up that space with like different sounds and such. Except from I've just cut away some of the lows, but then I've boosted some of the highs just because it sounded nice. Then next we've got another EQ, and this EQ is just a normal EQ, just boosting some of the lows, just some of the sub frequencies, so that it's more boomy, and it has more bass to it. Then we're cutting away at around about 200, because usually around at that mark it makes the mix a little bit muddy, so it just cleans it up a little bit. Then usually the juice is within your mids, and by boosting the mids a little bit, it just fattens up the song a little bit, and it just gives the song a little bit more body. Now I'm literally just boosting it around about 5k, just because I felt like it needed it, and that's at around about like the same frequency that my voice is sitting at around about. Next we've got Magma BB tubes, and this is a saturation plugin. Beast kind of gives it a more manly type of feel. I don't know, it's strange. And then Beauty gives it more of a feminine type feel. But I basically ended up using the subtle mastering boost preset. It usually just sounds good, like you could just whack it on, and it just ends up sounding good on anything. But I ended up cutting away 20% of the mix. So we've got our mix knob at 8%, so we've got 80% of the wet signal, and then we've got 20% of the original signal coming through. The next plugin I used is the TDR Kotelnikov. I'm pretty sure that's how it's pronounced. Basically it's a dynamic range compressor, and basically it's just really good at gluing everything together. I ended up using the mastering warm preset, and it basically just squashes the dynamic range so that everything's more coherent. Obviously we've got the threshold, so at the moment, like at minus 25 dB, that's when the gain reduction starts kicking in. We have our peak crest, we have our soft knee. The soft knee is like basically how it will react once it hits that threshold. And then we've got attack, release. The rest of it's all pretty self-explanatory, but yeah, it's just a really good plugin to basically just glue everything together. Really good compressor. Next we have a limiter, which is technically another type of compression, but we're basically just making sure, once again, we're just squashing the dynamic range just to make sure that nothing's like peeking through the mix too much, and yeah, it's just making everything sound a lot more cleaner. Next, then we're using Maximus, which is a multi-band compressor, but I'm using it as a loudener. It's basically just boosting everything up. This plugin's really good at boosting things without distorting anything. So basically the way we make everything louder is we use saturation mode A, and we put it to 3%, literally just a tiny bit to the left. Then we need a little bit of reduction. So we end up using soft saturation ceiling and putting it at minus 0.2%. and then we use the ceiling to basically just boost the volume, and it does exactly that. It just boosts everything up, and it does it really well because it just doesn't distort it at all. So but then you basically use that in relation to a LUFS meter, and I've got Ulean loudness meter too, which is completely free, and basically I just check here, and usually as long as you've got your song mastered at around about -9. I mean, on average YouTube compresses songs down to around about -9, but I'm pretty sure Spotify compresses songs down to about -14 LUFS. So it depends on where you're releasing your song. Then you might have to remaster it just to make it fit, but ultimately I don't think it really matters too much. And then we've just got a final EQ, and this EQ is once again, it's just another subtractive EQ, but I just put it at the end of the track, well, at the end of the mix, just so that we can basically just get rid of any unwanted frequencies, and basically this is just cutting any of those frequencies that basically are just like super muddy. Sometimes it can get really boxy, and you just want to cut away those frequencies, and it basically just cleans the mix, and that's basically everything I did.